Hello, I'm Rob from Panchiko, and this is my USA 24 tour rig. Start with the guitar here. So these are a great little company, American brand called Pure Salem out of Florida, and they make wicked cool guitars. They kindly sent me this one, and it's flipping wicked, called the Jimmy, and they make kind of like cool, kind of like psychedelic sort of guitar. But yeah, they're wicked. It's kind of like a sort of weird Fender hybrid, and a lovely sparkly finish, which is nice. So on this guitar, it's got a couple of custom pickups. I think they're specially wound for this company. This is like a throaty kind of spiky humbucker, and this is a little lipstick. I most of the time use the humbucker. Occasionally flip it to the middle for kind of more of a sort of spacey sound. What's nice about this guitar, simple, single tone, single volume. I do a lot of volume sort of ride off when you're holding like a super distorted note. I'll roll that back with my fingers and then I'm gonna change my pedals in silence, pop it back up and go again. And it's great, it's just a wicked little sort of shred machine with an extra fret, short scale, and oh yeah, another thing I use heavy strings, so 52 to 10s. So instead of the standard sort of like 46s, all nice and chunky, so you get a bit more of a chunky tone and you can hit them a bit harder. The Dario's 52 10s. They're good. On any short scale guitar, top tip, never use anything below 52s, otherwise they'll just go out of tune loads. And they sort of, you know, get more chunk, which is nice. And then yeah, and that goes into, I suppose we should look over at this little bad boy now. I've always liked orange amps. And this is just their kind of little Rocker 15, all valves, 8 valves in this little beauty, only tiny, but sounds great. It's got a super good sort of clean channel, and then you can dirty it up pretty well. And surprisingly, considering how small it is, it's quite, you can get a chunky sound out of it. They're great. We've all got sort of small amps, if you want to sort of look around here, and it's quite good because you don't have to have too much stage sound, but through the PA they can make them freaking loud out front, and it works great, and it fits in the van. super important is what we found is, again, all guitar amps in my opinion are super sharp and too trebly. So you roll off all the treble, add a bit of bass, scoop a bit of mids out, and you get a nice sort of spiky lead sound that sits over the kind of sort of Owen's rhythm, and then sort of Andy's sort of mid lead. You can get like a nice spiky tone that sits sort of in the mix nicely. So the guitars sort of actually mix themselves almost in the way that they're voiced and the parts are voiced, which is quite nice. So front of house don't have to do as much, we sort of let that happen with the parts kind of thing. And that's basically, yeah, and then that's fed from this through these two little bad boys. So these are just great for tour. These are Line 6 Helix effects, like everyone uses them now. But this tour I've gone for 2 separate ones, which is sometimes a bit of a dance on the old foot switches, but means you get an insanely good like variety of tones, and they turn back on and come back on almost every time and don't break. Yeah, so what I've got is I've got 2 of these Line 6 effects, Helix effects pedals, and I've separated them into 2 things. Essentially this is your drives and your distortions, and then this is all your kind of modulation. So I've got, like on this side I've got very specific drives for certain songs. Like for instance, this Bit Crusher is the sound on stabilizers, almost to the T. So if you engage this, it's a really lo-fi bit crush distortion sound, and that's that kind of broken sort of thing on stabilizers. Then I've got a Minotaur, which is your kind of mid-drive, which is your kind of general distortion sound and kind of soft lead. And then I've got this lead, which is basically all the lead on like death metal, kicking cars, any kind of thing where you want it to just go slightly insane and mental. This is a good one for just pushing it into extreme feedback. It's based on like a treble booster, which everyone used like in the 70s, but I take all the treble out of it and just use the kind of sort of guts of it. And that works really well. This is just a general mid-drive, and then this is a shout out to Line 6. This is entirely off the new firmware upgrade, and it's a feedback button. The problem with these amps is you can't go very loud with them because they're only small, so this enables you to generate feedback at a random pitch in the chord at the front of the stage by holding a momentary button down. So you can literally smash a chord, hold that button, and it will gradually ramp up some sort of feedback sounds. It can like sound like insanely rocky, or it can sound really ethereal, almost like an EBow. And that works amazingly. It's really good. It takes the DSP up of almost a whole pedal. It's so complicated, but it works really well. And then moving on to here, this is all your kind of reverbs, delays, and choruses. This is super important in the kind of like space rocky kind of shoegaziness of Panchiko. Is having a lot of this. So I've got a generic spring verb, which is like a sort of model of like a Fender, old school Fender amp reverb. I've got a delay, which is like a bucket bridge, old school tape delay, makes a bit out of tune, but very like subtle, but it adds a kind of doubling effect. Standard chorus from like a 70s pedal. And then I've got these mental ones. This bubble is a cool bubble vibrato, and it basically detunes as you go. So it makes this kind of like sort of squishy, sort of modulated detuned sound. Then you've got the space echo, which is an exact replica of the the classic tape echo from the 70s, and that is amazing. It just goes, it's endless delay essentially. So it's really good for like improvised bits in between songs. And then you've got the shimmer verb, and this is actually specifically for, you've heard it at first, a brand new song, and it's kind of a weird kind of modulated delay that we use on a new song called Salt. And we've been playing it for the first time on this tour, and it works well in comparison to like the studio version of it. That's kind of sort of that, but what's sort of interesting that makes this setup a bit unique is that this synthesizer, my faithful old micro Korg, which I've had since I was about 18 years old, so it's about 24 years old that is. This comes out, goes through a little digital amplifier, if you see here, which boosts the level of it, and then that goes all the way down into here, into an effects return on these effects pedals. So all these patches get fed through all these effects pedals and then back into the amp. So the synthesizer sounds don't sound so digital and sort of out of the mix. They come exactly from where the guitar would in a mix. And and you can do lots of cool stuff with it. What's a good example of? If you look here, on here, these are all my patches. These are all like programmed by hand, there's no presets on them, and you can see the songs. So All They Wanted, Stabilizers, Death Metal, Fail at Maths, and then you've got this section which is just for cut, which is quite a synth-heavy song. I can demonstrate it if you want. This took a while to program, but it's kind of, you'll get to hear the sort of classic cut intro kind of thing. So let's give it a go. And there's your intro for cut. And that all feeds through back into the little orange, and you get this kind of cool sort of almost guitar-like distortion out of it. And then there's like this noise you might recognise, which with this kind of crazy breakdown sort of sub-bassy filter sweep, you can engage the drive down there, and then I've programmed this to drop it down 2 octaves as soon as you push that button, and then you get this kind of crazy sounds. And then and that's the like cut breakdown and how we do it all live. I think that's kind of the sort of little selection of all my bits and bobs and how it sort of works. If you want to find us, Instagram is a good one, the internet, got a website, you know, all the good stuff. You can write us a letter, maybe strap something to a carrier pigeon, send it out to England, and I'm sure we'll receive it.